more glorious to carve and paint the very atmosphere and medium through which we look, making life worthy of contemplation. Heady stuff. But Thoreau was onto something there. It's one thing to produce a TV show, another to watch it, but far more interesting perhaps to stop and think about it. In this documentary, we take a look at those who get us to stop and think about America's most prevalent art forms, the mass media. We talk with some of the United States' top film critics, book critics, TV critics, and popular music critics. Of course, that means there's a whole range of other critics we're forced to exclude, such as art critics and drama critics and classical music critics. But for the sake of time, we had to draw the line somewhere. We traveled to Philadelphia, Baltimore, Washington, D.C., Nashville, Los Angeles, and finally back here to the Big Apple. Our quest? To figure out what these critics do, how they function, and how they see themselves. While we principally focus on it from their point of view, we also talk to a few media artists themselves. How do they see the critics? What impact do the critics have on the creative process?
None whatsoever. I just throw, actually critics was hard on me on my last album. That's why I can tell them all, eat a dick. You know what I'm saying? I hate critics because people that don't know how to do critique, absolutely. And I mean, always with your first project, when you're fresh and you're new, everybody wants to sing your praises. Then when you come out with your second project, all they want you to do is fail. So they're looking at all the inconsistencies instead of looking at the growth. So critics can eat a dick. Y'all too critical sometimes. Matter of fact, I'll put a critic in Crit the Cab.
Oh! Artists like hip-hop's Method Man don't see much use for critics, even though he concedes they were helpful in exposure for his first album. So it's useful to ask, what good do they do? Or do they do any good at all?
I think that most it's really just to get people to think. It's for us to think about it, and as the critic to think about it, and to get your readers, viewers to think about it in a way other than just sort of accepting it as, I don't know, first-level information.
Unfortunately, while most of us spend an enormous amount of time each week exposed to the mass media arts, we spend very little time reflecting on them. So the first reason for mass media criticism is simply to get us all to think about the media we consume. So there's a value in reading or listening to those who spend their hours reflecting on those arts for a living.
The important thing is that you should open their eyes to something on television, because I always felt that this was such a powerful medium that the most dangerous thing that can happen is if you sit there and let it wash over you like you're a mindless drone. And my job was to elevate your critical awareness, to make you see all the possibilities, and then you act accordingly.
Music critic Tom Moon is so excited by the records he listens to that he feels compelled to talk about them.
The function of a critic, it seems to me, is someone who takes you from a complete neutral position where you're sitting there having your coffee in the morning reading and gets you to go, wow, sometime in my day-to-day I have to go find that record. I have to hear some of that. Or I've got to track down that book, or whatever.
David Starrett's written for the Christian Science Monitor for over 35 years. He's written or edited 9 books on film. He teaches at the Maryland Institute College of Art.
A good critic will both be giving me fresh ideas or suggesting fresh ways of looking at things, whether it's a particular movie or play or book, piece of music, or whether it's an artist or a whole body of work, or even a phase in a national cinema. You know, the subjects can be very large. Any critic that can both teach me things and get me thinking and freshen up my thinking is a good one.
And there is a pleasure in thinking about the media-conveyed arts for both critics and readers, according to the Washington Post's top film critic, Stephen Hunter.
Reading is one of the great, deep, uniquely human pleasures. And if we can, through writing, lighten the load, illuminate the way, give people things to talk and think about, educate, titillate, and provoke, if we can reach people through their imaginations, then I think we've done well in the world.